Yeah, yo, what's going on, guys? Seth Spartan here, guys. We've got an awesome and important video for you guys today. Give us a watch till the end. Today, we're going to be talking about one extremely important thing, which is what? Why you feel bad, as in bad, on a carnivore diet. I am the perfect person to talk about this, having been formerly I was Mr. High Carb, or Mr. High Carb Diet, Mr. High Carbohydrates, for many, many, many years for bodybuilding and all different sports. It doesn't even matter what kind of training. Having said that, guys, let's talk about this. I'm going to explain to you guys perfectly and precisely why you currently feel terrible, why you feel just plain out bad, plain and simple, on a carnivore diet, and what you can do to fix that. Guys, let's get right into this. So first thing I have to say, the main reason typically why you feel bad on a carnivore diet is what? It's none other than adaptation. We are talking not only does your metabolism and your enzymes and your entire body as a whole in terms of energy metabolism has to switch from, yes, burning primarily glucose, carbohydrates, to burning primarily fat, and you have to build up enzymes in the metabolic process to support that. Well, yes, that's 100% absolutely true. You also have to experience what is called what? Mitochondrial hypertrophy. What does that mean? The mitochondria inside your cells, also known as the powerhouse of the cell, as you've learned in anatomy or biology, actually has to become bigger, stronger, more jacked, ultimately a bigger, denser mitochondria to be able to do what? Burn fat at a faster pace. And this is one thing, guys, that most people don't understand. People say, well, carbs can be burned faster than fat. That's not necessarily true. You know why? Because your mitochondria can always get bigger, stronger to be able to do what? Burn way more fat. We have people who are keto adapted or fat adapted, and we see in medical studies that guess what? They are burning fat 3 times faster than the average American. How can this be? How can one person in America who's eating pretty much keto or carnivore, how is it that their body, their cells, are burning fat 3 times faster than the average American? Well, that's simple. Because the average American is slamming carbohydrates every couple hours. And guess what? Their mitochondria gets lazy. It decides, well, carbs it's not really hard to break down carbs into energy, also known as glucose. So guess what? The mitochondria shrinks and shrivels up. For a simple example, imagine you're a gym bro, right? I'm not hating on you guys, but there's a lot of gym bros that they just don't train legs. They don't squat. They train their chest, their shoulders, maybe they even have forearm day, right? They're copying Sam Sulek or whatever. But guess what? They never train legs. What happens if you don't ever train your legs? What happens if you stop squatting? You're going to have little chicken legs. It's the same exact thing with the mitochondria, okay? If you don't work it, it's going to shrink and shrivel up. Why? Because your body doesn't need to have a big, jacked mitochondria, which can just rip whether body fat or dietary fat coming in. The mitochondria basically atrophies if it was ever hypertrophied in the first place, because it doesn't need to burn large amounts of fat. So that's one big thing with the carnivore diet. Beside mitochondrial hypertrophy, if you've got a weak mitochondria, you're going to feel bad switching from primarily carbohydrates to fat. It's not because something's wrong with your body, it's just because you're not using it, okay? If you go and you try to squat, you haven't been squatting, you're gonna struggle, okay? So that's number one, is adaptation. Most people feel terrible on the carnivore diet, or they just feel plain out bad on the carnivore diet because they don't, they haven't adapted both metabolically, and then also your enzyme switching. The enzymes have to build up not only at the digestive level, but also in terms of, we're talking gluconeogenesis and also ramping up ketone production. The enzymes have to build up. And, the opposite is true. Is let's say I did carnivore or keto for a couple of years and then I start eating a ton of carbs. Well, guess what? I'm going to be getting sick, mainly because my metabolism, my enzymes have really slowed down, that we're able to digest carbs. I still can, but I got to slowly ramp that up, because if I just go back and slam the carbs, my body is going to have a hard time dealing with all that glucose, okay? So this is something to understand. So the biggest problem, number one, why people typically feel terrible or feel bad, just plain out bad on a carnivore diet, is because they haven't adapted. If you want to reach your peak, you need 3 months on a carnivore or keto diet. And make sure you watch my video, the perfect adaptation for carnivore, okay? I did that video just a couple of videos before this. You have to watch that, because you have to slowly taper down carbohydrates, because if you go from high carb to no carb, you're going to run into some issues such as hypoglycemia, especially like I had, night sweats, night hypoglycemia, giving you nightmares and just feeling terrible. Okay, you got to slowly taper down, and that's why I recommend, starting off with, a couple pieces of fruit per day 1 week, then a little less, and then the last week you're doing 1 piece of fruit per day before bed, and then you cut it out and you're fine, okay? You just can't go from 500 grams of carbs to nothing, okay? You got to let your body ramp up the metabolism. Your body can burn anything. Fat, carbs, doesn't matter, can burn it all as long as you let it kind of switch over, okay? Build up. Okay, so that's reason number one. Reason number two, most people feel bad on a carnivore diet. Besides the whole adaptation thing, is what I just talked about. They switch too fast, okay? You got to slowly, if you take 3 weeks to transition to a carnivore diet, you'll have no problems. Start at 3 pieces of fruit per day, do that for a week, and typically eat the fruit later in the day when you're getting hungry or you feel your blood sugar going down, if you're sensitive to that. But I would eat the 3 pieces of fruit later in the day. And the next week go down to 2, and then the last week go down to 1, and then go just straight carnivore. And one thing a big mistake people make too on carnivore, and this is a stupid mistake, but they eat way too much fat. They eat way too much fat. That's another thing too, is if you're not eating a lot of fat, and guys, I'm carnivore, and I personally don't like eating tons and tons of fat, okay? I just, I can digest it. I used to, when I switched, I was like, man, I ate way too much fat. I felt sick because it was just like, your bile and your digestive enzymes also have to ramp up, But the thing is that I don't like eating tons of fat. I feel too lethargic sometimes, okay? So what I like to do is I typically like to eat, anywhere from, if you read the nutrition label, it says fat and then protein on the bottom. You typically want to eat, in my opinion, okay, this is what I feel the best. I feel the best between, so protein and fat, 1-to-1 ratio to half fat to 1 protein. So what does that mean? If the back of the label on the meat says, 10 grams of fat per 20 grams of protein, great. I wouldn't go any leaner than that though. And I'll eat up to, 20 grams of fat per 20 grams of protein, if it's whatever chunk of meat that is, okay? I'll eat that, but I won't go fattier than that because I don't like having tons and tons of fat. There's people that eat butter and all this crazy stuff, but guys, stick to the basics with carnivore. And this brings me back to the third and last point, why you feel bad. We addressed everything else up to this point. But this is the third and last reason why you're going to feel bad on carnivore. Listen up to me. Listen to what I'm going to say. People eat too much processed foods. Now, if you really want to add a little bit of cheese or a little bit of butter or, eggs are fine. Eggs are carnivore. But if you want to add a little cheese and butter, fine. But the thing is that stick to meat and eggs, guys. I feel I'm going to tell you guys this. I feel my absolute best, peak of peaks. Boom. Look at those lats. I feel at my absolute peak, guys, if I am eating just meat or maybe meat with some eggs. I feel my best. And honestly, that's true carnivore. Carnivore is like, if you went out in nature, that's what you'd be able to find. You'd be able to find meat, and sometimes you'd be able to find eggs. But, that's pure carnivore. I feel my best on meat alone or meat and eggs. Okay, I perform my best. I feel my best mentally and everything else, okay? But, there's some people that just eat tons and tons of cheese. Now, I love cheese. I eat tons and tons, but I don't feel as good, okay? The body knows what's processed and what's not. You're not going to find cheese out in nature. So, if you're doing meat, eggs, and tons of cheese and tons of processed meat and all this other stuff, forget it, okay? You're going to feel your best, typically just meat and maybe some meat and eggs, okay? I'm just going to say that. So keep it simple, guys. People are trying to make carnivore into like a junk food space, and just stick to what works, guys, okay? Plain and simple. Set Spartan, stay safe, stay healthy. This is why you feel bad on carnivore, and we are out of here.